I'm confident that the St. Louis Blues will have more than 40 wins this season, and I'm going to tell you why coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for listening to Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Haley Taylor Simon, and it is simple. I miss St. Louis Blues hockey, as you can tell. I have on my sweatshirt, I got my nails done, blue. Everything is blue because right now it is the end of August. It is August 30th, and this means that there is only 47 or 42. I forget which one. It's in the 40s until the regular season begins. And on today's episode, I am going to talk about how many wins the Blues will have this season. And I set it at 40 plus. I truly believe the Blues will have more than 40 wins this upcoming season. And then what were the biggest problems last season? And of course, Blues History Minute of the Day, which is one of my favorite summer segments. Unfortunately, when the regular season comes, it will come to an end. But right now in the summertime, I adore this segment because I am a huge history nerd, as many of you guys know, especially when it comes to Blues hockey. So let's go talk about how many wins will the Blues have this season. Last season, the Blues had 37 wins. And just to add 3 more wins, it's not as easy as it sounds, but I do believe that it is achievable. St. Louis definitely struggled last season. There is no doubt about it, and I will be talking about that in the next segment. But for the Blues, I have a couple of goals for them. Have more than 40 wins this season. Having anything under that 40 win total is embarrassing, and honestly, with the talent that is on the team, I know that it is achievable. I know that it is possible. What I don't like about last season was there were some games where the Blues really could have won, but they gave up in the third period and played some very sloppy hockey. When you have a goalie such as Jordan Binghamton, it is evident that the defense is the main problem. And if the Blues really just focus on improving the defense, improve that blue line especially, and just improve their format on the ice, then it is definitely possible to get a couple of those wins that they did not achieve last season. When it comes to St. Louis and this upcoming season, the schedule, it is what it is. You play all the hockey teams, right? So there are some teams that are going to be more challenging, obviously, and there's going to be some teams that are, I don't want to say easier, but just not as challenging. I'll say it like that. And I think the one thing that the Blues need to keep in mind is that the way that you start your season isn't the way that you end your season. And what I mean by that is this: get the kinks out of the way, figure out what is not working, and then put together what is working. And if Army needs to make some trades and, get this team to look a little bit different, that is okay. And I would be a fan of that. I think that having the Blues stay the exact same from the beginning of the season to the end of the season would be a disservice to them. I think that you just need to get that one defender in the league. And I can't name a player because I don't know who will be available. But what I can say is this: get an all-star caliber defender, see what he can do, and add it to your roster. While cap space could be an issue, make some trades. I don't care what you need to do, but it is unacceptable to have under 40 wins with players that you have. And even a Torrey Krug, listen, I understand he did not want to play for Philadelphia. I don't blame him. But maybe work on a deal with another team that he is willing to go for. I don't know all the teams that Torrey is opposed to going, but it might be a little bit difficult to get him back to the Bruins. Definitely not impossible, but it will be more difficult. Free up some of that cap space. Right now, I think what the Blues need to do is to focus on the future of the team, and you're not going to have a team successful in the postseason with the defense that they have now. They need to set realistic goals as to how they can achieve this 40 plus win season. Now, does 40 plus wins guarantee you a playoff spot? Absolutely not. It is still not good enough. But is it an improvement from last season? Yes. But what is the real goal that St. Louis have? Like, what is the goal in mind? Is it to get to the postseason? Is it just to get a couple more wins than last season? Is it to rebuild? I'm not sure what their goal is, but it cannot be what last season was. Last season was fluky. It was weird. It was the first time the Blues missed the playoffs in like 5 years or something like that, 5-6 years. It's unacceptable. And just to have 37 wins, and I believe it was 38 losses, and then the whatever remainder in ties, which is stupid. Whatever. That is a rule in hockey that always annoys me. But it's unacceptable. It really is. And I mean, like, here's the thing, St. Louis, and I'm just going to keep it 100 as I do here in Locked On Blues. You recently won the Stanley Cup. Do not do what everybody expects teams to do that just won the cup and go in this downhill spiral. Every single person loves to see that. They get enjoyment out of it, which is stupid. But they do. And I'm the kind of person where I can be realistic. Sure, the roster that won that cup, yeah, was it built to win the cup? Absolutely. Do I think that roster is do I think it was a one-time thing? I think for that roster it was. But I think the Blues, and especially when I say the Blues, I'm talking more management. They know how to get back there. They know what to do. And I just think at the end of the day, getting back to that position where you could win that Stanley Cup again, that's rule number one. You need to get back there, because if you cannot get back into that mindset of what can I do to use all my sources, to use of my, what's the word that I'm thinking of? My resources. That's what I was thinking. If you're not in that mindset of what can I do to get back to that cup, then you're not in the right place. And that's where some management stuff will have to change. Because my mindset right now is how to get back to the cup. And I'm not management. There's nothing that I can do. But I just don't understand the lack of hunger. And that is something that will always bother me. It's the lack, I don't want to say it's the lack of care, because I do believe that the management cares about the Blues. There's co-host. But I don't think necessarily that there's this like hunger and there's this like pressure to get back. And I think that's an interesting thing that I just said about pressure to get back. I think that there's some teams that put pressure on themselves, and you can tell that they're just a completely different team than last season. A good example of a team that I think puts kind of pressure on themselves to do better is the New Jersey Devils. They weren't always the good team. They were actually a mediocre team for quite a while. They got a lot of younger players, new talent, and now they're a team that you can tell puts pressure on themselves to do well. I always want to ask your opinion, so I asked you on Twitter at Locked On Blues. Do you see the Blues winning 40-plus games this season? Last season, they won 37. I have like 123 votes currently. 69% of you say yes, while 31% of you say no. And there were some comments, so let's go see what the comments says. Zach said, obviously we want more wins, but the Blues cap space situation isn't good for this upcoming season. Only thing we can pray for is Army doing some magic at the deadline. And exactly what I just said. Get rid of that cap space, acquire some more talent, and see how it goes. Bruce says, yeah, I do. I don't think they'll set the world on fire, but they won't be dreadful like they were last year. I think last year was a one-off. And well, Bruce, I really appreciate your enthusiasm. I don't think they're going to be that great of a team this season, but I definitely think that they're going to be better. While Charlie has a more negative approach, and Charlie says slightly under with the same ups and downs as last year, I don't think that they're going to get under 40 wins this season. I think setting it at 40 wins is very realistic. That is only 3 more wins than they had last season. I said, I am so ready for today's show. We will talk about realistic expectations and why I believe the Blues are capable of winning 40 plus wins, which I just explained. There is going to be so much pressure put on some of these players, especially these defenders, to prove why they deserve a spot on the St. Louis Blues. And don't forget, when jobs are at stake, right? You're going to perform better. That's with any job. That's with an office job. That's with hockey because it is still their job. So I'm interested to see what these defenders will do. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel, the app that is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. My voice cracked at the end. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing, what a good segue, Hale. What were the biggest problems from last season? And I slightly touched on this, but I think this went hand in hand with my last segment on why I think the Blues will have 40 plus wins. Last season, some big problems that occurred, and these are going to be my opinions. And I asked you on Twitter, so I will share your opinions. But my opinions, before I get to what you said, I did not look at what you said because I want to have my honest reaction. I think the defense is #1 biggest problem. The defense, the lack of scoring. And what I mean by that is, yes, goals were made. And there are certain players that I cannot be mad at. I can't be mad at Jordan Kyrou. I can't be mad at Thomas for setting up all those beauties of assists. But what I can be mad at is the lack of easy goals missed. And I'm not going to name specific players and call players out. That's not what I do here on Locked On Blues, but it is a team sport. And I do think the offense was a little lackadaisical, and they could have taken more opportunities that they just got a little bit sloppy in. I think the team chemistry was off. And that is something that not only I noticed, but a lot of you who listen to Locked On Blues notice. Because when I first began doing this podcast about 3 months ago, I talked about the chemistry and how I just felt like the chemistry of the season was so off. And a lot of you agreed on that. And if your team doesn't have good chemistry, you're not going to be successful. It is not going to be fun hockey. And last season just did not feel like fun hockey. I think another thing when I think about last season, and I don't know if this is something that is going to make sense when I say it, but I will explain it. I think the lack of trust between the players and Army. And let me explain this. I have to be careful with how I say it because I am not saying that the players do not necessarily trust Army, but he had a special bond with that team that won that Stanley Cup. And I'm not seeing this same, I don't want to say respect, I'm not seeing that same connection with these current players. And I think that a lot of frustration was shown on the ice. I think you could tell the guys were just frustrated and done with the season. I mean, who wouldn't be when you're not doing well? But it was very evident that these guys were not happy. And I understand the frustration. I do. As a fan, Of course, I was frustrated watching some Blues hockey. But I do think you still have to play 100% despite the fact that you know you're not going to make it to the playoffs, that you're not a good team. I think you still need to put in that effort and show that you care. There's so much history when it comes to St. Louis Blues hockey. It's not just like this team all of a sudden came about like the Knights and the Kraken and some newer teams like the Ducks, but this team has history, and you need to represent what that history means to the city, to the fans, to the generations of Blues fans out there. I think that you need to give it your all. When a team has history, you need to play extra hard because you're representing the entire franchise of St. Louis Blues hockey. When I was a kid, I remember hockey was one of those sports that was super tough, and it was always competitive no matter what. If the team was going to make it in the playoffs, still competitive. And I just feel like I did not see that this season. And I think watching Blues hockey for so long, this season just felt off. And I think that is not only upsetting, and I don't know what you think, but it definitely rubbed me the wrong way. And while I can be excited about this upcoming season, because I tend to be an optimistic person, I'm a glass half full when it comes to hockey. Most of the time in life, I'm like half empty. I'm very negative. But I miss hockey, and I'm going through my like little hockey withdrawal, obviously. If you're on YouTube, you can see I'm all decked out of my blue stuff. I miss hockey, and I think that's what it comes down to. But if this is happening and we're in December, I'm going to be miserable because it was not enjoyable last season. While right at this moment, I would take any kind of hockey because I just really miss hockey. I think you understand my point where last season, unacceptable. So I asked you on Locked on Blues, I said, why do you think the Blues struggled last season? My first time seeing any of these comments. Zach said, injuries, old and young players not performing up to their potential, failure to address holes on the blue line. I did like when they did what they did with getting all the draft capital last year, but they need to fix the blue line. I agree. The draft was like the only highlight. Llama NHL says they don't have any good defenders on defense, and the forwards don't play defense. Yep, facts. Andy said, in a word, transitions. In two, blue lines. Andy, I like that. We looked like we would give up on stopping opposition from gaining blue lines and struggled to advance the puck beyond them in either zone. Yep. Daniel says lack of group chemistry, never could get gel as a team for some reason. Bad defense, players only focus on themselves and laziness. Yep. Chad says overall team defense. Josh said not enough shots on goal. JD says injuries and defense, a lot of goals in front of the net. Just tap it in. That's what I was saying. I was saying that. You guys are reading my mind. Old Stuff says the defenseman stunk. And Ryan says defense is the main reason. So essentially, to clarify, we are all on the same page. It is the defense, easy goals and opportunities missed, and the lack of chemistry. Boom. I forget who said about players only focusing on themselves. I did notice that. I noticed the lack of passing. Robert Thomas is the exception. That man is such a team player. I did notice that. So that is a really good point that somebody pointed out. But everything else on my list you had. So unfortunately, we are on the same page. Fortunately, we're on the same page as in we think alike. Okay. So before I talk about my Blues history minute of the day, again, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Blues, where you get to see me, Haley T. That was not cool. But also to all of our podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Music, Sirius, wherever you get your podcasts. And Twitter is at Locked On Blues. And then my personal Twitter is Haley T. Simon, which you can see on YouTube if you're watching on the YouTube. Okay, I have a Blues history minute, and then I have a comment. So this is from St. Louis Blues history. I love this Twitter page. August 30th, 1966. Lynn Patrick and Sid Solomon III debuted the original St. Louis Blues prototype jerseys, of course, never used. The jerseys were made, and I am going to kind of show you, if you're on YouTube, the picture of it. And I will describe it to you if you're not on YouTube. So it is a really interesting format. I don't like them. The blue note is covering the St. Louis up top. And then below, it's the Blues, but it's kind of like curved up, if that makes sense. I don't like it. I love the sweater that the Blues have now. I think they're just absolutely beauties. And it's weird, right? When you see what it was going to be and then what it actually became. I am so happy they didn't go with the prototype. So happy. It was not a beauty. But the sweaters that the Blues have now, beauties, and the reverse retro. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I might have ordered my own version of it that's coming in. Okay, let me say this and I'll make my other comment. I'm obsessed with reverse retros. I think they just look sick. I think the Blues and the Ducks have the coolest one. But I was like, I want to custom order my own that I think would be a beaut. And I know what you're thinking, Haley, did you really design your own St. Louis Blues sweater? Yes, I did. Will it take a couple months to come in? Absolutely. But do I think that this would be a really cool alternative for the Blues? Yes. So yeah, don't ask me how much money I spent. Don't ask me why I did this at 1 a.m. But I did it because I wanted to have a sick sweater that was unique. And it's definitely unique. Okay, here is my comment. The St. Louis Blues posted on Instagram today, and they said, name an underrated player. I could have named so many players throughout the history of St. Louis, but what did I say? I said, Braden Schenn, you should just name him captain already. And then underneath that comment, I said, and don't think that I forgot, Robert Thomas will be captain one day. Now, that comment that I posted is blowing up with likes right now. And I took to Twitter and I said, listen, if they're not going to name a captain, I'll take matters into my own hand. As host of Locked On Blues, I think it's really important to speak for the people of St. Louis and to use my platform for a good way. And if just saying, hey, when are you going to name a captain? It definitely needs to be Schenn. If that's such a bad thing, then call me a bad person. But I am doing this for the greater good of St. Louis. I will not get off this case. He will be captain of the Blues. And it will be because I am beyond persistent. I argued my point. I listened to counter arguments. And then I decided that my opinion is the better opinion. I'm playing. No, but I really do want it to be Braden Schenn, and I do need a captain to be named soon. I miss hockey. Also, guess who will be having guests on this? Oh my God, I'm really high in octave. But guess who will be having guests on this week? This girl. I'll be having different guests coming on throughout the next couple of weeks, and I'm excited to see where things go. All right. As I end every single episode on the Locked On Blues, let's go Blues.